of what that really portends if we don't keep our environments intact. But there is a good development that we've had so far on that particular front, and this is what Steno has drawn inside the People Daily today. I just wanted to chime in on that because there's a water protection unit that the government has actually come up with that is meant to secure some of the water catchment areas in this country, water being a critical infrastructure, so to speak, as they put it. And I wanted just to talk in light of that, especially, and juxtapose this with the drought that is ongoing, Honorable Kirwa, and juxtapose that also with the fact that the fertilizer that I mentioned earlier when we began the show, you as a farmer, I know you're a consummate farmer, yes, has not arrived so far since the promises that we were given by the Jubilee administration. But we're given to understand that these fertilizers have docked, or all this is just public relations exercise.
Well, what I've been getting from the ground is that farmers have been registering, and they register by paying, first indicating that they are farmers, bona fide farmers. And I do hope, because at times the logistics of distribution of fertilizer takes a bit of time. So I would want to give the benefit of doubt to the ruling coalition, Kenya Kwanza, for that particular one. But they should also realize the main farming exercise in the North Rift and some parts of Western and Nyanza are soon coming in the next possibly couple of weeks, in the next 3 weeks. And therefore, the fertilizer ought to be there by that time. We also have challenges because apart from the fact that we produce 40 million bags of maize, we seem to be having serious challenge this year that we might come down to 30 million bags, given the indications we've seen in the Eastern Bloc, coast, and areas that are now supposed to be harvesting. They have had depressed harvest or even totally failed, except in Makueni, some parts of Makueni. I wish Senator was here. That is where there is a bit of maize and some parts of Meru. But the entire Kitui and Machakos counties, the crops have failed. Now, remember also there is the issue of livestock. We lost last year 2.5 million head of cattle throughout the country. And this is a very huge amount of loss. And usually for livestock, it will take a bit of time to recover. Because it's not like maize that you plant. If it fails the following year, you can recover. This will take possibly about 3 to 4 years. So we just hope that the government will be in a position to ensure that we protect the livestock, and also whatever the amount of rains that we are likely to get, we should be prompt in terms of providing fertilizer and of course certified seeds for maize and other crops such as wheat and even potatoes, which are hitherto have been midwifed by ADC under the Ministry of Agriculture. Finally, I have a feeling that the ruling coalition has spent more time fighting imaginary wars. They need to spend more time looking at areas where they can spur growth. Because if we fail this year, the economic growth that we anticipated is not going to be realized. And food situation is going to be dire, and the country runs the risk of having to call again some kind of a national disaster for purposes of bringing in resources to feed our people. Now they are at 5 million, those who need support. It can easily go to 8 million in the next 1 year if the rains are not going to be sustainable, or they are going to be depressed and not effectively distributed throughout the year.
Right. Honorable Nyikal, so for the delay, I know this has been also a very good powder keg for Azimio. If you have that delay, the promises are not delivered on time as well, since they made those promises. What do you attribute this to? We have Tanzania, where we'll be exporting a lot of fertilizers from as well.
Well, it's not a good thing for Azimio, it's a bad thing for the country.
Yeah.
We are just concerned.
Yeah.
And when we talk, it's not
Politically, for political posturing.
No,
have...
as I told you earlier, the moment you divorce politics from the reality of people's life every day, you miss it. You may win, but not deliver. That's the danger you run. So we are always aware that as you are looking at it, the welfare of the people. The delay actually is not good. The fact that we are actually, do you remember there was an effort, Shima will tell you, many years back when this country even tried to produce its own fertilizer. You remember the Kenren?
Kenren,
Yeah. We had even tried to actually produce our own. We would now be exporting fertilizer. But that didn't work. That's why we are saying you need eternal vigilance. But the delay is actually not good. The weather doesn't wait. The rains don't wait. And the other thing I'm seeing that I'm not liking, we are putting so much emphasis on fertilizer. But fertilizer is only one input in the whole system of food production. If you look at the way the registration is going on, it seems to be going on more with the Ministry of Interior, what used to be called the provincial administration. Now, to me, there's a chance that is being lost. The bigger thing that you are seeing that we really need is extension work, so that farmers are in touch with agricultural experts who will advise them. And this registration is an area where you would have got these people to be really with the people, so that when they give you, when a chief gives you fertilizer or helps you to get a fertilizer, what next? But if you are to get this from an extension farmer, then you know that the following day there's a follow-up as how you have to use it. You used it. You know, in the large-scale production area, like in the Rift, North Rift, in particular, and in some other areas, people are on a commercial basis. They actually seek technical information. They seek technical knowledge because they're in business. But I think we are ignoring the value of peasant farmers if they increase their production across the country in areas like Nyanza, where you don't actually have very large scale. But when people with 2 acres, 3 acres, 1 acre produce enough food, it's a big boost actually, and it supports the country. And if we focus on that, then these areas that are not naturally large scale food producers will make a significant. I remember one year, I can't remember exactly, somehow in Nyanza region, people decided to put millet. And I was amazed. Individual small farms. And then side by side, it looks like a whole farmland across. So that is, with fertilizer, we should look at extension work. Again, we have to look at irrigation. I'm not hearing much about irrigation, because as we are bringing these fertilizers, this climate change is real. Even if you look at your own life, you go back to your own home, you look at Nairobi, you look at even the microclimate in Nairobi, you go to places like Lower Kabete, you go to Karen, you are amazed. You are seeing things you have not seen. So we must be thinking that we are going to need to do a lot more than just bring the fertilizer, bring the extension, look at areas where irrigation, and irrigation does not need to be just large-scale areas. You have areas where there have been small-time irrigation. I'll talk of Nyanza because I know that one. Like in Karachuonyo, there's been, Lower Kuja, there's been. Those things need to go into place. And food production must involve everybody. In Central, they produce a lot of vegetables and fruits that you have to look at, tomatoes and so on. And the mountain area. If you go to places like Makwene, they're producing a lot of fruit. And also they also produce maize and sometimes millet. Those ones must also be looked at. So I think we are focusing so much on saying what we want to do than doing it. And I think, in summary, the delay I'm seeing is we talk either too early, or we talk and don't follow up with serious action, or if we plan serious action, we don't have a proper monitoring and monitoring of performance. If we said we are going to have it on this day, you know, there was something in this country we used in the coalition government. I think Mheshimiwa was there, RRI.
Yes.
Rapid Results Initiative.
Yeah.
When you are in a situation where something has to be done rapidly, you put targets and you say, by this date, this will happen. Then go back, step by step, how you will reach that date. The best RRI actually is normally a funeral. People decide, we are going to bury on this day. From then on, they put structures on how the coffin will be delivered, how the tents will be delivered. The same thing should apply in this thing of food production. I really allowed them for looking at the issue of fertilizer. But on that, look at all other areas. Because if today we had food and the price of food went down, I mean, if you look at it politically, this thing we are shouting about, you will have to look at something else that is not being done. Because food is being done, people will feel it. So the delays is bad for the country. But my take is that we talk too much or talk too early. I don't see evidence of monitoring performance. Yes.
Okay.
So to me, that I think is where we are losing it.
All right. Let's gravitate now to the issue of taxation. Unless Honorable Kiro, we wanted to chime in and add on the food security beat. But I'd mentioned regarding the water protection units that this is a part of the security operatives that we'll be having to make sure that the critical infrastructure as far as water is concerned is taken care of.
Yeah.
And terrorists also, you know, they've been taking over some of its critical infrastructures. We know Lapset right now, a lot of construction has actually ceased because of terrorism in that particular region. So that also has become a niggling worry. In light of securing the water catchment areas, the water towers in this country, I think also that is a laudable move from the government, don't you think?
Yeah. Let me begin by complimenting what Mheshimiwa said, that it's not just about provision of fertilizer that can enhance food security. We must also ask ourselves, what are the certified seeds that we are giving to farmers? Are they really certified? Now, are we diversifying in terms of food production? Because there are other crops that are very useful, so, bulrush millet, millet itself, cassava, because we have left these traditional crops, and those are the crops that were fortifying food security. Secondly, the issue of smallholder. Those are the people who provide food for this country. You know, the large-scale farmers, we provide, I'm not really saying I'm a large-scale farmer, but medium-scale. Large-scale and medium-scale farmers, they provide food that is for sale. But these 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, these are people who are producing a bit for sale, but the bulk of it is for domestic consumption, knowing that every Kenyan consumes 100 kilos of maize every year on average. And therefore, if you have a home with like 10 people, 20 people, they need 20 bags of maize. And that can be produced within an acre or two. Now, the second issue is that while we are talking about these wetlands, we have abandoned the old system where we were devised not to cultivate within the riparian area. You go anywhere in Kenya, the forests, the riparian areas, the riparian land has been opened up and cultivated, and therefore the water that was being retained by virtue of vegetation and checking in the flow of a river so as to retain water for long has been lost. There is also what we call indirect damming, where you plant trees like bamboo along the river, along the riparian area. So the roots, because they mesh so well, they're able to hold water, not upstream, I mean on the land, such that it will be seeping in throughout the year. Those we have lost, and I remember President Moi declared bamboo as an endangered crop because there was a lot of harvest of bamboo. But nobody seems to be improving that. Finally, we also need to rope in other institutions like schools and even private individuals. We look for ways we can encourage them to have their small forests. If you have 100 acres, you could even dedicate 5 acres to a forest within your farm. If you have 10 acres, you can say half an acre, you make it a small forest within your farm. In that way, we'll be increasing the vegetation cover, and that's the only way we can protect. Because just planting trees, the way I've been seeing our friends are planting, is not enough. You must plant and protect that tree until it is grown. And we should not only be planting trees that we'll be harvesting soon. Some we plant the long-term trees that are likely to be here for another 100 years or 200 years for aesthetic value. We need to encourage Kenyans to understand that, because that's the only way we can improve vegetation cover. Finally, on the issues of insecurity, we just hope the government is going to secure the entire country, because that is very important. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so let's turn and shift the gears right now back to the tax politics, where the Kenya Kwanza government wants the National Treasury to furnish Parliament with a record of tax reliefs, waivers, or exemptions granted to individuals and entities from January 2018 to date. Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, in a letter to Treasury Cabinet Secretary, wants Professor Njuguna Ndung'u to provide the documents within 14 days to be scrutinized when Parliament resumes its sitting next week on Tuesday. Our senior reporter, Jeff Kirui, has more.
As Parliament resumes its sittings on Tuesday next week, the debate on tax compliance rages on. Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, has written to Treasury requesting information on list of individuals and firms who have benefited from tax waivers.
In line again with the provisions of the Constitution, the circumstances or grounds upon which such relief, exemption or waiver was granted, and the amount of tax that such persons, companies or institutions were obligated to pay had the relief, waiver or exemption not been granted, so that Kenyans can know who were the beneficiaries of any tax reliefs, tax exemptions or tax waivers, and to what quantum and how much would they have paid.
The period requested from January 2018 coincidentally falls within the same time retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga had the famous handshake. The scrutiny targeting custom duty, income tax, stamp duty, value-added tax, excise duty, as well as tax incentives to entities.
The end game is to end impunity and abuse of office, so that if there are people who may have abused their office at a particular time, those who hold public office today may know that you cannot use your public office to abuse tax exemptions, tax waivers, or reliefs to benefit yourselves or your families or your companies related to you as individuals at the expense of the nation.
Tax compliance debate has elicited sharp reactions across the political divide.
Ataruto waseme, sisa tutarudi nyuma.
President William Ruto alleging that the ongoing meetings led by Raila Odinga under the Azimio la Umoja coalition are protests against the government's hard stance that everyone must pay taxes.
Ile maneno ya zamani ya waiver ya huyu, waiver ya ule, kwa sababu anajulikana, kwa sababu ni mtu mkubwa, hiyo mambo wasahau.
Wawache KRA ifanye kazi yake. Wasileta siasa kwa mambo ya ushuru. Bwana ushuru hata Zakayo ambaye alikuwa anatoa ushuru katika Biblia alikuwa anafanya kama wewe unafanya. Wachana na Mama Ngina, wachana na Uhuru Kenyatta.
We have no reason to target anybody, but we have every reason to target anybody who may have abused their office, granted themselves waivers, and not to target them for anything else, but to target them and politely request them to pay up their taxes.
We are requesting the president, please move with speed. Let everybody pay tax.
The National Assembly is also set to deliberate on key other issues, among them the budget policy statement for 2023-2024 financial year, as well as the proposal by President William Ruto for the establishment of the office of the opposition leader. Jeff Kirui, KTN News.
Interesting editorial cartoon today on the tax bracket as well, drawn by Ozone. You can see the dynasty who are being pressed inside there by the G clump, right? Or is it the C clump, as you can see it? And we have Wanjiko, also the churchman. We have the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, they're holding the Bible as well. Is it the tax that we're experiencing right now? Wanjiko is the one who's bound to suffer. That is according to Ozone. We have also Gado, who has drawn this for us today. Taxes. The arm wrestling that is ongoing between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, it seems Wanjiko is the one who's going to suffer inside there at the end of the day. Looking at also what we have been seeing there, the mass action and the pay taxes, the temperatures are rising, and the head of the child there who's holding that particular pail in hand, they don't want to hear about the pay taxes or the mass action. All they want is just food in their pail. And this is bound to heighten. As you can see now, they're hacking back to 2018. All the waivers, all exemptions that cannot be justified now, that has to be scrutinized. And Kenyans, they have to know why they have been exempted as well. Honorable Nikal, we have on the other side Azimio saying no, do not touch so-and-so, do not touch Mamangida, do not touch Uhuru Kenyatta. This tax wars, where are we headed as a country, and how are we bound to suffer as one nation?
What is bothering me is, I said earlier, once you are in government, however you get there, whether people are saying they recognize you or not, you are still there. You have a duty to govern. Yeah. That is, in fact, your way out. But now what you are seeing, when you hear these things, you don't see the objective of the welfare of the people. What you see is vengeance and vendetta. Because even when you hear Honorable Kimani Chungwa, who is sometimes very reasonable person, and he says he wants this list, the impression you get immediately, there are people he's looking for. Now, if people should pay tax, put in place the process of paying tax, look at the laws, change those laws. If some people then are found to have breached those laws, take them in. But you don't start by saying certain people did not, therefore I'm going to do that. Your objective is then the people. In the coalition government, I keep saying this because I saw things done totally differently. I think it was Waweru who was in charge of
Michael Waweru.
Yeah. And I remember we had a meeting of permanent secretaries and ministers, I think in one, even the president. And all he was expected to do, he actually laid out how he wants to improve tax collection and what areas he look at, what laws he'll put in place. Once that was done, actually we didn't hear much about taxes, but revenue started to flow in. People who are due are asked to pay. So that's what you actually do. People should pay taxes, that's okay. If people didn't pay taxes, there's a way to do it. I mean, if you go in this country, there are a lot of people you will find who probably didn't pay taxes, and some are going to court. You had even these big business people. There was these breweries in Naivasha, they were going to court. It is a process. So let that process go on. But look at other areas, how you are going to improve tax. Let's not make so much noise about it. Let's just see the results in the revenue that is coming in. Now, if you look at this law, I had to look up on this estate duty tax. It is something that I think was done in 1969. Yeah. And actually, even earlier, it could be 64, 65.
Yeah, it stopped in 1982 as well.
Yes. Then, I think Kenyatta in 69 somehow got exempted, the Kenyatta. Then in 1981, Moi also got exempted. Then in 1982, it was actually removed. Now, if that has happened, why the hullabaloo about it? Now, there's even another principle that you're wondering. If it was a law then, the law may have been bad, but it was the law. People are following the law. If you change the law now, do you now want to chase those people who are following the law at the time? The law is never implemented in retrospect. So you feel that this is vengeance going on. It was actually the abolition was actually just a one-page thing, which said this estate duty tax no longer exists, will not.
The Abolition Act
you are
of
done.
1982.
Yeah, 82.
All right.
So now, if you're going to get the people who had tax waivers, look at that list. But when you start by certain people, then now you look at the list. If you say, I'm really going so and so didn't do. But anyway, I now want to search this thing deeply. In the mind of the people where you are talking about, you are talking about that person. You are not talking about tax for everybody. So we are missing the point, because I think the government, we are looking back, we are walking backwards. The government is walking backwards. They should be the people saying, we are through with the elections, we don't want issues that look like campaigns, we want now delivery. And that's the way we should go. Tax is also being, the way it's being done, you see it more as a political agenda than a raising of revenue.
Honorable Kirwa, looking and hearing from Kimani Ichung'wah, it appears they do not come out with a very neat collective voice as far as tax is concerned. First, we have Cherargei, we have this Abolition Act 1982 now that it appeared it is not holding any water at all. And even when we talk about the estate duty levy that was on Kenyatta, the former president, the first Jomo Kenyatta, and Moi as well. This was also a Commonwealth exemption tax that were given to the head of state, right from, you know, her Royal Majesty the Queen, the late Queen Elizabeth. So that is not the former president that actually sought for the exemption. It was the law that was governing the Commonwealth exemption tax during the day. So now that this really backfired, they go back to 2018 to try and retrieve those tax exemptions as we know it right now. It seems then, from your assessment, will you take it to be a political tax witch hunt?
Yeah, it worries me, because I would have expected them, when they went to Nanyuki retreat, to do what the Honorable Nikal has said, that they sit down, the taxman tells them the challenges he's faced with, so that each ministry can promote collection of taxes within their purview. I would have expected also the retreat in Mombasa, that included even members of parliament, would have been ways of how do we improve tax collection, because it is from taxes that we get money to run the country. But when you invoke the names of certain individuals, almost casting aspersion on an elder stateswoman like Mama Ngina, and you invite her now to the court of public opinion to start competing with you, then it becomes vendetta, vengeance, and it is diversion of the fact that possibly they are not able to perform the miracles they thought they would. Number two, it is also important that taxes are levied on the basis of certain regulations and laws. And we need to know, because you see, when they talk of 2018, it is like 2018, the handshake brought in a group of tax evaders. Because why 2018? Kimani Ichung'wah was an MP at that time. He was in the Committee of Finance. And if he was an MP worth his salt, he should have been able to raise the issue in the Committee of Finance if there was any anomaly at all. But he's now telling us this just to cloud the whole issue and make it that it is Uhuru and Raila who are tax evaders. Now, finally, it is also important to realize that Uhuru is an entity, and the Uhuru family are so many individuals doing business. And I don't know how much of the family business Uhuru owns, because he has other siblings, There is a mother, and those entities are also entities that can be legally pursued without necessarily invoking the name of the former president. So I think it requires all of us to behave in an orderly manner, accept we need to pay taxes, but don't make it that there is a group of Kenyans that is not willing to pay taxes. And don't make it that there are people who accepted themselves. Or why don't they be specific? That on this particular time, we know the bank, that the Kenyatta family has some interest. And I think that case was in court. I don't know, it has been determined. So let's get other cases and even small companies. But you see, those of us who come from communities that takes care of livestock, if you want to get the best milk or the biggest amount of milk from a cow, you feed it and you sing to it as you milk, but you don't beat it. So that's the way you can get more milk. So, but now the taxman needs to be friendly to those who are paying taxes. And if they are not friendly, they're likely to bring down the economy of this country. And it is worrying me, it is no longer about taxes. It is appealing to the court of public opinion that the dynasties that we are fighting are still in town and we need to fight them again. And you know, for those who have been studying William Ruto, he always looks for the monster to fight. The monster to fight at the time they were in ODM was the Kikuyu nation. Now, he moved away from ODM, and he was saying there were 4,000 youth who had disappeared. And when they moved into the Grand Coalition, that story of the youth was removed. But now he created a monster in Raila. He started fighting Raila from the beginning of the Grand Coalition, all the way. Now, this time he has been fighting Uhuru, and he still now want to lump Uhuru and Raila and fight them in one corner, so that you don't see him, you see the people he's fighting. He creates an enemy, then he goes for them, for purposes of sustaining himself in power. But he has realized he has now reached the apex. He's the man in town, but he's still looking for those who left town, that these are the people to fight, for purposes of him not showing that there are weaknesses in his corner. Yeah.
Right, and what to see also, what are some of the ramifications for this tax was in the conducive business environment that we should be in. But since now we have the estate duty levy settled, that we know this is non-existent, there was an abolition act as well, but names have been dropped in the public gallery. Names have been smeared. What will be the right recourse also for the people who they feel they've been deeply aggrieved by such stance? When we saw Mama Ngina really coming out and saying, of course, you can write a demand letter instead of actually putting out in the public gallery, what dead hand of bureaucracy you can actually follow for you to get the ultimate result.
Mama Ngina put it very well. If there's a year I didn't pay tax, take me to court, I will pay the taxes. The corollary of that is actually those who feel they have been aggrieved by this can actually also seek legal redress. But then what then happens, we are leaving the major thing, which was the raising of revenue, and we are starting now to fight. Now, like Mheshimiwa was saying...
But isn't that also the attempt of raising the revenue? That if you've not been paying your taxes, you should pay your taxes.
I think what I've seen is actually the people who actually do proper tax collection. They look at it as a large base where you are going to get small taxes, but it's huge. Look at what VAT, I don't know when VAT was introduced in the country. It's a very effective way of collecting revenue, so that on every single thing you pick, you get a small amount of money into tax that probably people don't feel that much. I don't think you will get a lot of revenue. I may not have the facts that if you get 1 or 2 people and then you think now you are going to squeeze them for the tax they didn't pay, for the tax they should be paying, you lose the bigger picture. That is acceptable. Everybody should pay tax. That principle is there. But don't make it look like a particular person. Yeah, because if you make it look like a particular people, then the question people are wondering, are those the only people? Could it be really possible, like Kichunga is rightly asking, he wants a whole list, but could it really be possible that it is only these few people that were not paying tax that has made our situation as bad as this? So on that way you lose. So I think they should look at what I would expect is that when we go to Parliament, we'll see a broad strategy of how we are going to raise tax. Because as you are raising tax, you have to remember that you can also hurt people, because the cost of living is already high.
Right.
The commodities that are high, the services that we need are not available. Power, now water, fuel. You are talking of water. When you raise tax, you must also have a moderation. How are you affecting people? Because in that case, you are getting tax to offer people services. You don't kill them so that you offer them. When you have killed them, who are you giving those services with the tax you have raised?
Okay.
Yeah. So we are missing the people point in all this politics and debate.
Honorable Kidwa, still on the taxes issues, because we teased out that water is bound to be rising by 78%.
Yes.
So if actually currently, for instance, you're paying 400 shillings for whatever cubic meters of water you're using per month, that will double.
Yeah.
That is bound to go up. So we're looking at water being taxed.
Electricity.
That is electricity also come April the 1st. We'll have electricity. That will be almost 15% also a rise on the cost of electricity. Fuel charges as well, that is bound to go up. We have the congestion tax that also is bound to be affecting many Kenyans. And people were wondering how then this will be very punitive when you're talking about congestion tax. Maybe you yourself, you have an electrical vehicle, but still have to pay the congestion tax. Why can't the government come up with, the sensors? They are mounted like other countries like Korea, for instance, where you have monitors which can pick, these emissions and from what cars that these emissions are coming, so that you are charged yourself instead of having a blanket congestion tax. So we're becoming heavily taxed from every arena, every which way that the government thinks we need to raise taxes, they have to go after it. So if what is going up, electricity is going up, this is Wanjiko that now is suffering. What are we left to look forward to?
It's worrying. I do accept their predicament because I think we opened up infrastructure too fast and therefore did a lot of borrowing, to the extent that now almost close in future, close to 50% of what we collect will be going to taxes. Right now is 1/3 is going to, not taxes, is going to pay
Debt
the loan,
payment.
the debt. Now domestic borrowing has reached 50% of the total borrowing, which therefore means money is being squeezed out of the banks into government, and therefore denying you and I a chance to borrow for growth. What does it mean? It is that the economy is going to plummet and shrink because there is no production that is going to take place. What does it mean? The cost of everything will go up and people will not afford most of the basic, what we are calling basic commodities for even food and other, because right now, if you are not a maize farmer, many families cannot afford 5,000 for 90 kilogram bag. Finally, I think they need to be told, the Kenya Kwanza team needs to be told, at times when you raise taxes, you destroy the ability to collect more. Remember, VAT for much of the time was 18%. Kibaki 1 came and reduced VAT to, I think, 16 or 15, 16%.
Yes.
And we collected more.
After the reduction of it.
After reduction from 18 to 16. And with the bit of mobilization domestically, we're able to finance our budget up to 93% from domestic resources. The borrowing was about 7%. It is much later, of course, that things changed, and we cannot blame them because we see the roads, we see the infrastructure. But what we need to do now is to encourage people first to produce, so that you tax. You don't tax and stop people producing, because at the end of the day, they are going to punish themselves. And even the budget of 3 trillion might have to shrink again next year, because where will they get the money? And you cannot really borrow to pay debts. You have to get your own revenue to pay the debt that they ought to be paying. And coupled with that is the issue of the cost of wage bill. It is huge, and now they are resorting to going for ECD teachers that they will reduce their salaries. Instead of preparing, because 2050, the way our other friend told us, there will be more people from Africa working. Now, we as Kenyans, are we preparing our children? The ones in ECD will be fully fledged workers in 2050. Now, instead of preparing them, we are saying we are reducing salaries of ECD teachers, and therefore the children are not going to have a good foundation of education. Because the moment a child is not taken through proper foundation at ECD level, the rest of primary life, they may be lucky that they open up when they get to higher positions. Otherwise, we'll be destroying many of our children, and the level of illiteracy will start going up again. Yep.
You want to chime in on that, if maybe you're privy to that, on the ECD issue that we also raised, that the Salaries and Remuneration Commission wants to scale down on their salaries from around 16,000 to 7,000.
Now, you see,
I think we discussed that largely. Yeah. But the reason actually I'm coming to you is the fact that I know you're a pediatrician.
Yes.
And largely on that particular front, you can tell us the formation of how pivotal it is for ECD's teachers from the 0 years to around 7 years.
People people have been actually mistaken. This early childhood education really is a lot more on development than actual education.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and people have been thinking that you can get some standard 7 dropout and then make them an ECD teacher. In fact, you may, in the best circumstances, you may need a lot more highly qualified teachers, even with the degrees, to actually take care of ECD teachers, because this is the time that, apart from noticing the development, you can also pick problems with children, problem of sight, problem of hearing, the other disabilities that are hidden, learning disabilities that they have, speech disabilities, things like dyslexia, where the child looks normal but can't pick it. It is this time you need to pick it. And if children come out of this really well prepared and also well, let me say, streamed, because if you find children that are difficulties, this is when you are going to stream them early so that they get the support. So the assumption that early childhood education is in an area where you can actually reduce cost without doing harm to the education system is like thinking you can hide the foundation even if it is weak, and the big building will stand. It won't stand. So in my view, I was actually thinking, I have a teacher training college in my constituency, and now you see they're changing that from certificate to diploma, and because of that, the requirements are high and the numbers have gone down. I was saying maybe we should shift now to actually use this for early childhood training, so that we start having specific teacher training colleges with emphasis on early childhood training, because it's not just education, it is also child development and child health. Some of these children have not even finished vaccination. They are still there. So I agree with you. I agree, and what it is, we should look at other areas.
But let me ask you, because I think also you as legislators, you have also an opportunity to maybe tease out the issue in the National Assembly, because when you look at the institution of higher learning, we concentrate more, especially when it comes to bachelors of education. Because these are the ones that go maybe to teachers training colleges, but bachelors of education is for secondary school. primarily. Can we consider maybe having a pedagogy that concentrates on the childhood development, the ECD, so that we don't have this tier of, the way you put it in this country, that D and below are the people who can concentrate on the early childhood development care?
The answer to that is yes, and I've actually...
Is there anything in that particular note that
you
have to be...
You brought a new thing that, even as we discuss with you, we also pick ideas.
You pick ideas
that actually there are areas we should look at. We should now look at
I can make a good consultant. What do you think?
Yeah. The training...
You already won.
The training of early childhood teachers, we should after be more specific and should be even more specialized than we are doing it now. On that, I agree with you. And the education system, we really have to look at it. Even with the CBC we are brought now, to me, again, it needs people who have actually had a very good base to come in. Because this competence-based, the area we have been really bad at is the area of technical area, the area of maths. Again, people come out thinking maths is difficult. And to me, there's nothing that looks as common sense, as logical as maths. So that if you had a good base, you should actually be able to do it very well.
Yeah, but the key word is a good base.
If you have a good base.
If you have a good base. How we start is really important.
Let me, maybe we don't have much time, but let me tell you what happened to me in Standard 4. Those were many years back. I missed school for 2 weeks because of a funeral. And in that period, they started teaching fractions. When I came back, the basics of fractions were done. Now they were just using it because the technical areas, you build on what you have. Life generally like that. I couldn't just pick it. I nearly dropped out of school.
Yes.
Yeah, because I couldn't pick. And I was one of the best, now I was one of the worst.
Because on how you started.
Yes. Decided to take me to his home for 1 week during vacation without being paid. And when we came back, I was back to where I was. So a lot of children we miss because of
the question is, that's what I'm saying. If the teacher had not taken that initiative,
I don't think
most probably
I don't think I would have done medicine.
Yes, you would have done medicine at all.
I don't think so. I think I would have just dropped sciences and said they're difficult. Because the technical areas, if you don't have the basics, you can't build on. It's not something that history you could probably learn a new thing, even if you don't know the old thing. But math, you can't do this if you didn't do that.
It's a basic structure for every.
the basic structure.
It's a basic structure.
But I wanted to say something about tax. Me, I'm not a tax person, I'm not an expert. But I think widening the base and even reducing the amount may actually be a better way than increasing the amount. But you also have to look at what are the effect of the things you are doing. When you talk of water charges, maybe because of my background, I shudder. Because what are the health implications? What will it mean to our already weakened health system if people cannot get water? People will be sick. Do you know that if you actually make water available to a household, you reduce the incidence of illness, particularly diarrhea in children. That alone without doing anything else. So water is very close to air. So that you shouldn't, water is, if you talk of one thing you must do if you're thinking of health, it's water. So when we're talking of charges on water, we must take care of that. But when you are looking at this congestion, why do you have congestion? You have congestion because the infrastructure, the transport in the city, it's not even back to where we were in 1960s. Do you realize that? There was a much more orderly transport system. And that is what kept away the matatus, the transit system. When that broke down, matatus came in. I don't know which came first, but that broke down. So again, instead of trying when I saw that you want to keep private cars out of the CBD, I think there may be some relations with that. Many people wouldn't want to come to town with their cars. If there was a way, they would come to town. And that's what you see in other laws cannot replace order and proper management of issues. You cannot bring laws that are unjust. If you're now saying people can't come to town because they make congestion in the town, what you do things that are stopping them from coming into town. I saw another one that you are going to, in education, that you are going to insist that the children don't go to school earlier, don't leave late. That's not you look at the curriculum, the time you put for the curriculum should make it possible that if you teach normally and you have the right number of teachers between 9 in the morning to 3, 4 p.m. and over this period, you should be able to complete the syllabus. So that if that is done, then you will find people going. I mean, it's strange. 5 o'clock in the morning when I come here, I actually find kids on the road. Yeah. I'm struggling to wake up. When did these kids wake up? I didn't even have to do a homework. Yesterday I could have slept early if I wanted. The kids had to do homework.
Yes.
So it's the way we organize things that will make certain things happen. Hard laws will not make things happen if you don't improve the ingredients that are leading to that. I think the same thing will go with tax. Yeah. So how I know it's a challenge. We did infrastructure. It has cost us. And when we were in Mombasa, because before we went in recess, it had been agreed how CDF money will be disbursed. It wasn't, and that's what the problem. But what we got, whether it's true or not, is that the money actually was used to pay debt, a particular debt. And you see the direct impact of debt on the services. This money was paid debt, so CDF could not be disbursed. So we were not going to give bursary to kids. Kids were going to be at home.
Right, we do for us. You hold it. I know you've got a lot more, but I just want to take a short break. I mean, not a short break right now. I said broke. Yeah, because I think we are broke as a country and we need more money as it is. Because looking at what we have on the People Daily this morning, workers, farms will pay more for NSSF. And the Court of Appeal paves way for Ruto government to raise monthly repayment from 200 shillings to about 2,000 shillings and push to ramp up savings for old age. Moving will increase cost of business, cut incomes. This is adding up to the cost of water that is bound to go up, cost of electricity that is bound to go up, congestion tax, and other taxes as well. We take a short break. When we circle back, we look at that management of NSSF itself. Even if we raise this money, we want to be told how will the management of this monies also be handled. There have been a lot of scandals around NSSF. Don't go away.